Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Alli McKee, and I'm here to talk to you about the outsourcing roller coaster. So I'm just going to sort of set expectations here. So my goal is, given the N is 1, right? I'm sure. How many people have worked with outsourced developers? Okay. How many people are considering it? How many people had a totally seamless experience and it was fantastic? Okay, you want to do this talk? Okay, so I'm going to talk to you sort of about how to hire contractors, when to do it, how to think about it, and then also the management piece, which is also really important, as well as on one side, just entertain you with some stories, I hope, and also share the pain a little bit and get some therapy out of this. Okay, so I'm gonna give you some background because I'm probably not like your typical js.la speaker. So at my core, I'm an oil painter and an artist and a visual thinker, and I've visualized ideas my entire life. So then when I started my career as a management consultant at Bain & Company in San Francisco, making slide after slide after slide after slide, I saw that this visual communication skill that I had throughout my life, there's this massive skill gap in the workplace, particularly in business, and seeing that I actually wanted to be able to share that skill to make meetings move quicker, to help sell more deals, and just to connect people and get be more engaged. So I had this idea of, okay, if I have this process of visualizing ideas, and I was in grad school at Stanford at the time where everyone's starting software companies, and I was like, we could build a program here. Like, we could build a program that actually takes your ideas, takes your words, and visualizes it for you automatically. And so I did Hackbright up in San Francisco. Any Hackbright alums? No? Heard of Hackbright? Awesome. And so did a kind of intro to programming course, and I can tell you a little bit about that. But to understand the story, this is the backdrop. Okay, so this is what I talked about, having this idea for a system in my head, and realized, here I am drawing this out on my iPad. Again, not your typical, architectural drawing, but saying, all right, if we can hook together a bunch of APIs, as soon as I was kind of learning what an API was and how it worked, so we can literally take structured text from bullets, build a recommendation engine to recommend the right visual layout structure, and then populate that structure by using NLP APIs, matching icons, any kind of tagged asset, and sort of create this visual slide. So this is the dream, right? And I'm going around and I'm shopping this to technical co-founders, and everyone's like, "You're nuts! Like, this is crazy." And so I was like, "Forget it. I'm gonna figure out how to prototype this thing myself." So while at Hackbright, this is my final project, which was a Slack bot, Node.js. So basically a bunch of if-else statements of, someone could say, "Hey, I want to show this," and we'd say, "Great, here's a visual that you can use." Not particularly useful, but it was a good start. So anyway, so I took that, and I realized, okay, I want to get this thing off the ground. This is a really hard problem. My option is I can either keep searching for a CTO, have a bunch of people tell me I'm crazy, and just keep waiting and risk losing the drive, or I can, raise a little bit of friends and family money and try to get started with an outsourced development team. And so, as the title of this talk suggests, that's what I did. First step of knowing how to hire or how not to hire. I think what's really important to figure out here, as you're thinking about, before even getting into any relationship, because that's what it is, with an outsourced development team, is like, what stage is this product at? For me, this was, you saw the extent of the product. It was basically a drawing. So we were in the before even the definitely not a bird scooter, more like a skateboard, right? Very, very simple. I just needed a team to hack it together. And I always had in my head, okay, once I have this team that hacks it together, then I'll hire a team here. What we found now is we're a little bit more in the bicycle phase. The expectations have totally changed. QA does matter, even as soon as you're putting it in front of customers. And we're not quite at the zooming car yet, but knowing making sure that you're really clear about what this phase is for the teams you're working with. I messed this up big time. So let me tell you a little bit I'll give you a couple little vignettes of how I found these people. So the first step, here I am, the classic MBA at Stanford, begging for engineers to work, the awful cliche, right? And so I have a friend who has this contact with this he's starting a kind of development shop. He's very product manager-minded person. And I'm like, this is perfect. Always go with referrals, always go with relationships. There's no way this can go wrong. No. It was basically a situation where I was, I think the price was 55 to 65 an hour, so not a joke, for extremely junior developers who were based in China and didn't have any, and of course I didn't really fully realize just how junior they were until later, but very little English communication ability, if at all, and everything had to go through this PM person. Again, going back to are you a scooter, a bicycle, or a car? We were a scooter, and I needed to be able to hack together stuff with a couple people, right? I didn't need to be paying this Stanford PM to PM my PM mindset. It's too many layers. So I'd say that was a first watch out of don't over layer yourself. So anyway, so they start working. We realized pretty quickly this is a disaster. I remember the first version had, it was welcome login, except it was their security, the full login code. It's okay, we're gonna wrap this up. So meanwhile, I'm okay, maybe I do really need a CTO who's here. I'm interviewing people. Finally get this guy, this very established engineering manager who had dabbled in a bunch of startups. It's this is great. He gets it. So we start working. Again, I'd raised a little bit of friends and family money to pay his salary, and I was excited to finally have a partner in this. And I'm on GitHub, I'm checking the commits. I'm this doesn't feel, meanwhile I'm doing everything else a startup founder is doing. It's life is just crazy. And so I'm not committing myself to diving into the code as much as I should have. And I'm gosh, this just seems it's going slowly. And he's oh, you don't understand. It's because you aren't a real software developer. You don't know enough. And I'm God, this is just really, okay, I guess I need to learn my patience, right? So about after 2 months or so, I'm on LinkedIn and I get a message and it's hi, Alli. We've really enjoyed working with your team. It's a very exciting product. And I'm hi, I'm sorry, who are you? Turns out this was a guy who ran a development shop out of South America. And yeah, you guys are just going. So my CTO had hired this shop without my knowing. And I found out through digging in immediately that not only was he doing this, he's working with other startups. Total disaster. So I'm okay, 2 continents and still not a real product. What in the world am I gonna do? So I'm a little bit panicked at this point. I get on, go on Upwork, and I'm just start interviewing people like crazy. And finally this guy came up. He had really high ratings, and he said he was in Brooklyn, but the team was in Ukraine. And I was oh, are you actually in Brooklyn? Are you, in Brooklyn? And he's no, I'm actually in Brooklyn. I was great, can you meet for coffee tomorrow at 8? And he was aren't you in San Francisco? I was yeah, I'm gonna get on a red eye and I'll meet you for coffee. And he was you're crazy, okay. But it was awesome. And that was July, and have been with Roman and team ever since. Hasn't been easy, which we'll get to, but the point there is face-to-face. The core of this, if you take away one thing, it's like all about trust, right? That's true with any team, but like it is completely all about trust, and it's so hard to do that over video chats. It's so hard to do that over email. It's so hard to do that over Slack. And so get on the frickin' plane and go meet the person. And truly, like if I could do it again, if he were based in Ukraine, like I would have flown to the Ukraine. It has been that important to start the relationship with like, kind of a data dump of like, this is the whole story. Are you in or are you in? Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, like the core lesson here really is thinking like, okay, I was screening for skills, like who matched with our stack, like, what their rate was, whether they were junior or senior and everything in between, and realize like, all that is helpful. Those are inputs, but ultimately what it comes down to is communication, because I wasted a lot of resources in the beginning off of just mismatched communication, mismatched expectations, mismatched specs. And so that is absolutely critical. Okay, so managing. All right, what's worked well? Again, doubling down on communication. So right now we have even though things are absolutely crazy, not just with building the product, but with the rest of the company. So like I'm selling, fundraising, hiring, but making sure that those times with the team are just gold, and I'm fully present. I don't have other tabs open. It's always video chat, again, to that face-to-face point. And with the time zones, like it's at 7 a.m. on Fridays, like not exactly what I look forward to on a Thursday night, right? But they're staying late in the office on a Friday, and I'm getting up early, and we both know that like we're in it together. The next piece is, this is really difficult, but manufacturing momentum if you need to. So the most challenging part, I would say, about working, even in a situation that's worked out pretty well, it took me 2 tries, but the 3rd tries worked out pretty well. Your incentives are misaligned, right? I have shrinking resources and shrinking time, and they're getting paid by the hour, typically. So it's like, there's just a gap there. And in a really early stage startup, it's really hard to do project-based as well, because things are changing all the time. And so we've done, even with this current team, we've like gone through these phases. And I think what I would recommend is like, if you have you're getting something off the ground, doing a project-based chunk, like making sure that it's spec'd out, making sure, that it's scoped out, and then shifting into more of an hour. Once you've built up the trust with those deliverables, then shifting to hourly. But it's really hard to like start and ramp up with hourly, because then inevitably expectations are, milestones are doubled, and it becomes really frustrating quickly. And then finally, I'd say, again, sort of to the motivation point, just because you have a team that is really far away from your users physically, or really far away from your team physically, does not mean that you can't bring them in to the fold. Right? And I've found the single best way to do that is user feedback. So making sure that, if I have a feedback session with some of our customers, I'll record it. Or we use Full Story to, kind of capture sessions and like really learn from the users directly. And I couple that with interviews and try to share that experience, the why, constantly with the team, or else it gets lost in the flurry. What hasn't worked so well, as I mentioned, ramping up particularly, like every single estimate, I think I figured out on average, it was like 2.2 times what it was. That's probably even generous. It's probably a little bit more like 3 to 4 times what we thought it would be in the beginning. And then in kind of that the majority of the work where like things are humming and they're going and you can see the development going, don't forget that like building, unless you build their ownership, it's like really heavy, It's like you, again, as like QA becomes more important and you're like diving more into the details, it's really hard to like keep everyone motivated unless you build that ownership. And then finally, and this is sort of where we are now, is transitioning. We've gotten really far with a contracted development team, and we'll keep certain resources on as sort of support, but making sure that if you are in a startup, like you're actually building a company as well. And I was reading the book Designing the Obvious, which is great for anyone trying to up their UX game. And it says that disjointed teams build disjointed products. And you can feel it. You can feel it in the product, right? Like you can feel the communication gaps in that interaction, those interactions. And so making sure that you're thinking about that DNA of your team as well. So whether or not it worked, I think it depends. But I think our goals have been met for sure, and we're still, what started as like, okay, this will be a prototype to hack together to prove something has now turned into like a product that we've sold and are selling, and a product that has enabled us to attract a team. Here as we're building our team in LA, it's a level of magnitude stronger than the engineers I was trying to recruit a year ago. And I can show you quickly. So this presentation was built in Stick, our tool, which takes text like this. So this is the content from the slides you just saw. And then this is Stick. I feel like I'm introducing a child or something. Okay, great. So let's see. So you can just type in text here. So how outsourcing can be most successful. I think first is it enables you to innovate quickly at a low cost. So there were, pieces there were ideas that we pushed. So one of the things we were thinking about is a Google Slides add-on. We built it because we could, because at $20 an hour, like you can take those risks. Whereas if you have a full salaried engineer here, it's a little bit tougher of a decision. I think it forces you to clarify your vision for the product. So you don't get to just be like, oh, we'll do this piece and then figure it out, right? Like you need to have super clear specs. You need to have, and even if they're low fidelity, but making sure that you are super clear in your head and you can share that, because otherwise you end up like really with a spider web of a product. And then finally, I think it enables you to accomplish much more with much less. I mean, I took this product, we'll make our slide, drum roll, took this product to investors and they're like, this is crazy. I can't believe this thing actually, that you did this with this team and with the resources that you had. And then, quick demo here. So then you can click on this and then it'll swap out different layouts, formats, and then the same with the icons as well. Right? Great. And so with that, these are and then the last piece on attracting better talent. Because this product right now is a lot more compelling than the drawing that I had a year ago, I'm able to have conversations we're transitioning a CTO on board right now from like one of the top tech companies in the world, and are talking to team members who literally wouldn't have even answered my emails. So it's exciting to, then you end up really pulling together the best people to solve this problem, which is, I think, what we're all trying to do. And with that, questions. We have a couple minutes. Yeah.
Can you dig into some of the challenges you had around defining something and maybe miscommunication around there and how to solve that?
Yes. So I would say the challenges have been less around. So one of the benefits is that I am designed all the screens and built all the prototypes and envisioned. So it was really helpful felt like a lot of the miscommunications or tangles that we would have run into, I hit before. I was almost managing myself and struggling with myself. But where the real miscommunication happened was around that expectations piece, right? So getting the first version, it was like, guys, we don't have, I'm not going to be logging bugs. Like, we're just trying to hook these things together and just make something work. Now it's like, okay, we said this feature was done. It's not even close. It's in acceptance, but it's not working. And they're like, well, okay, we need to log this, basically go through a QA process. And it's tough making that progression if you aren't really clear about it. Yeah.
How do you handle the product management with such disparate time zones and different cultures and stuff like that? I found that cultural differences can be a big thing with outsourcing. I don't know if you've experienced that.
Time zones are tough. You can probably see with the bags under my eyes. Yeah. Because you're the one who ends up taking that, right? Because you're kind of used to a certain schedule. And we've sort of met in the middle, but not really. So that's challenging. And I would say in terms of cultural differences, it's been really helpful. So our interim tech lead is in Brooklyn, and we're talking all the time. So he's Ukrainian, but living in the US. And so he's an amazing, glue. And then FaceTime, trying to build up, trying to share the storytelling piece of this, which, typically the Ukrainian development team, they don't seem that excited about it. But once I do it, I'm always glad, because then they can make their own decisions much more easily. Yeah.
Have you ever had to fire any of the Ukrainian developers?
Yes.
Find new ones, replace them in their role?
Yes, but have worked with our tech lead in that, essentially I'll say, okay, timeout, looks like, either a speed thing or a quality thing. In this case, it was both. And I was saying, look, it looks like, the new addition to the team is clearly lagging behind the others. Can we, we need to address this. What do you think the plan is? And we talked that out together. So again, going back to having someone who's more in the weeds to help evaluate, but yeah, it's not easy either. Yeah.
So you said you met this person through Upwork.
Yep.
Did you start the contract through Upwork and then move off of it? I'm imagining you're not still paying Upwork.
Yes. Good question. Yeah. Started with Upwork and then moved to Gusto, so I just run all my payroll through Gusto, and you can pay contractors.
Is that another outsourcing?
Gusto is
HR and the service.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It used to be Zen payable.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They handle all of the ugly stuff. Yeah. All right, one last question. Yes.
How do you build ownership and purpose?
Pulling them into the problem-solving process rather than handing specs over the fence. Right, so saying, hey guys, when something for us right now is okay, this is a cool slide program, but we have users wanting to saying, well, I want to use Google Slides, or I want to use PowerPoint. How do we handle the integration? So I'll say, okay, here's the problem. Here are a couple of solutions I've thought through. What else am I not seeing? So bringing humility to it, and saying let's evaluate together what this looks like. And that's what our Friday morning, 7 to 8 a.m. meetings are usually used for those sort of dealing with the current problems we're trying to solve together. Great, thank you so much. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, I'm founder of Stick, or you can email me at Alli, A-L-L-I, @stick.ai. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.